In this video, I'm going to be showing you step by step how you can set up your Facebook ads to launch your e-commerce brand and start getting customers right off the bat. If you're new to my channel, my name's Arie, and right now I'm doing a video series in which I'm starting a brand from scratch and showing you basically the step-by-step process that I'm taking to make this into a 7-figure brand. Now, in the past, I've done videos sort of like this, but I've always shown the end results as opposed to actually showing you every step of the way, except for one time when I first started my YouTube channel, and this is sort of a revamped version of that series. So if you missed the first episode in which I basically explained how we were going to launch the store and the idea behind the brand and how you can come up with an idea to launch a dropshipping brand, then make sure that you watch that so you get caught up to speed. But now we've actually officially launched our Facebook ads, and I'm going to be showing you my dashboard and what that looks like, and I'll also be showing you step by step how you can set up your ads and show you how to read the data. So my goal with this video is to show you not only the power of Facebook ads, but also how you can utilize them to your advantage to bootstrap your e-commerce brand. Now, in the title, I use the word dropshipping because we are using the dropshipping business model to fulfill our orders so that we can minimize our upfront investment. However, this is applicable to any sort of business, whether you run a brand, whether you have a restaurant, a food truck, an OnlyFans. I don't know what you're doing out here, but this strategy is applicable to everything. So without further ado, let's begin. But before we dive into it, if you do learn anything from this video or you want to keep up to date with the store's progress, make sure that you drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel with notifications on. But as you can see, we officially got our first sales. Now, that is literally the most exciting thing when starting an e-commerce brand, is when you get that first cha-ching on Shopify, that first little sign of hope that people are actually interested in your brand. And not only did we get our first customer, but we've actually gotten a total of 35 orders so far, which is pretty exciting. And we've even gotten our first returning customer. So somebody decided to order again from us, which is such a great sign and really makes me feel optimistic that we can reach our 7-figure goal by the end of this year. So I'm really excited to look back at this video at the end of the year and just see all the progress that we've made. So how did we actually go ahead and get our first customers? Well, with the power of Facebook ads. So this is going to be the full Facebook ad launch strategy that I used for this store in 2021. And here is what we're going to cover in this presentation. So I want you to get an understanding of the strategy so that you can use it to launch your e-commerce brand. And I also want to give you some extra tips that I'm utilizing to make my results even better. So we'll cover the whole entire strategy while showing you live examples, and I'll set up like a dummy campaign so that you can follow along and set something up yourself. I'll talk about some ad trends that I see working in the e-commerce landscape right now, and also how you can sort of optimize your results. And like I said, I'll be showing you a live example and setting some stuff up with you. So here's an overview of the strategy. So nothing in detail here, but just to give you an idea of exactly what sort of process you should follow, or at least what sort of process I'm following. So the first step is audience testing. In this step, basically what we're doing is testing different groups of people to see who resonates with our brand the most. This is obviously super important because if you don't know who actually cares about your brand, you're going to be throwing a lot of money at the wall without really getting much in return. Now, of course, the next step is ad testing. So testing different creatives, different variations of ads to find what performs best with the audiences that we've found resonate with our brand. And then the last step of this strategy is simply optimizing everything. So using the data that we're gathering from audience testing and ad testing to create a more profitable business and actually scale our results to take it to the next level. Now, before we dive into the detailed stuff, I do want to give a few words of advice that I think are extremely critical. So the first thing is to follow a process. I obviously don't know everything. I mean, of course, I do know a lot because I've been in this space for a long time, but I don't know everything. And honestly, nobody does. So if you don't want to follow this process, don't worry. You don't have to. I'm not going to take it personal or anything. But I just want to make sure that you're sticking to something, any sort of strategy. Otherwise, if you don't do this, you'll basically be aimlessly spending money without getting anything in return. Like I said, you'll just be throwing money at the wall, seeing what sticks, but actually you probably won't have anything that sticks because you don't really understand what you're doing at all. Luckily, there are a ton of resources here on YouTube that you can learn from for free, but that can be pretty overwhelming if you're just starting. Like, there's literally so many different strategies out there. But as as I said, my goal is to make this as simple as possible for you so that anybody out there can start running ads for their business without having to spend an arm and a leg on a mentor or anything like that. I genuinely want you to understand how you can do this, build your own in-house team, and just really take your business to the next level. Now, the next step before we actually dive into the details is I want you to build a brand. So what I'm saying here is to build a brand from the beginning. How you fulfill your orders is totally irrelevant. You can always improve that along the way. And this is literally the definition of bootstrapping. So there's a huge wave of people that are getting into the dropshipping space with the hopes and dreams of getting rich overnight. This is classic stuff that happens in basically any sort of online money-making niche. People always think that they're gonna get rich overnight, and because of that, they don't really approach things with a business mindset. And this is why I wanna give you a word of caution. If you're not approaching this seriously and you're not trying to build a brand and building an actual business that people can get value from, then you're probably just better off putting all your money into Dogecoin or something and just forgetting about it for years and years, because this is not an easy process. However, if you do go into it with a brand building mindset, your likelihood of success is gonna dramatically increase. So I wanna give you a fresh perspective on the dropshipping model. I've been talking about this for years now. I really wanna give people a paradigm shift in how they approach an e-commerce brand, and this is why I'm really excited for this series. So the biggest benefit of building a brand from the beginning is that you're gonna be able to spend money unprofitably while still building your business. And I know that may sound kind of weird, but in the real world, this is how it goes. I mean, chances are you're not gonna get lucky and spend $100 and make $1,000 right off the bat. It takes time to get to that point. Chances are you're not gonna be profitable right away. So if you have an actual brand, you can still spend money unprofitably while building your business. This is exactly how companies are able to be unprofitable, but still be valued at like 100 million plus. And there's tons of examples like that. I used to not really understand how that was a thing, like how a company could be considered successful without them even being able to make a profit. But now I understand it's because they've built a customer base, they've built a community, and something tangible. Now also, building a brand will force you to stick to your store for a longer period of time. And trust me, the longer you stick to your store and try to make it work, the higher your likelihood of success is. If you're bouncing around from store to store, your likelihood of success is extremely low. It's the same thing with like trading stocks. If you're day trading, making like 10 trades a day, it's gonna be extremely difficult to make any sort of profit. But if, for example, you just bought and hold something for like 2 months, it's gonna be way easier to make a profit. And that concept is the same thing in dropshipping. Now, the last thing I wanna cover before we actually dive into this strategy is budgeting, because this is super important, and I just wanna demystify a lot of the misconceptions that I see out there. Budgets are totally subjective. Only you can determine what budget fits best for your business. And of course, generally speaking, the more budget you have, the more you should spend, because you can gather data a lot faster. You don't have to wait as long to make decisions, and you can get ahead of the competition quicker. However, there are so many factors that may prevent you from doing that, such as stock availability, that you should keep in mind before you start spending $1,000 a day on ads, for example. And this is exactly why for this case study brand that I'm showing you, I'm starting with $50 a day. That's a really humble budget, and I'm 100% sure that a lot of Facebook ad gods out here are gonna be like, Arie, what are you talking about? You know that $50 a day isn't gonna get you anywhere. But unfortunately, we are still waiting on branded stock to arrive to our sourcing agent's warehouse. I did fulfill my initial orders on AliExpress, but I hate going through AliExpress because they don't give you any sort of branded materials for your orders or anything like that. Whereas with a sourcing agent, you still don't need to invest a ton of money and order stock to your own facility and ship stuff yourself, but they give you the benefits of adding branded materials to your order, which in my opinion is huge for building a brand, and that's what causes your store to snowball over time. So these first 35 orders or so I fulfilled on AliExpress, and I treat those orders as proof of concept. Of course, those customers may not be as satisfied because there's nothing in that package that's gonna say the name of our brand, but these first few customers were our guinea pigs. Now we know that people are interested in our brand, and we can actually take it to the next level. We already ordered branded stock to our sourcing agent's warehouse. We picked all the branding materials that we want and everything. So again, if you want to keep up to date with this series and the progress of this brand, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel and turn on post notifications and like this video, because I don't think I've seen anybody be this committed to a video series series on YouTube except for like Be a Heza. So I'm trying to really keep it innovative here. So yeah, in the meantime, while we're spending 50 bucks a day, we're not spending an arm and a leg, but we're getting new customers in our funnel every day. And this allows us to take our time to be creating new content and building up our social media channels to really harbor a strong community from the very beginning, which if you watch the first video in this series is my goal. Okay, so finally we are getting to the actual ad strategy. I'm sorry, I know that was a little lengthy, but all that stuff that I talked about is extremely critical in my opinion, so I just needed to talk about it. Now, testing audiences is super important to understand what groups of people are resonating best with your product and brand. And I will say that broad audiences tend to work better with Facebook's machine learning algorithm, even at low budgets. So Facebook is pretty insanely powerful. Even with their iOS 14 rollout, they're still top dogs in the ad game. And once you see the example that I'm going to show you, you'll see what I mean by broad audiences working better. And make sure that you're testing as many audiences as your budget allows, but not more than like 15 to start with. Of course, over time, you will test way more than 15. But to begin with, I don't think it's smart to test more than 15 anymore, because you're just going to be spreading your budget way too thin and not letting each audience get its proper amount of money and time for Facebook to find customers in it. So make sure that you're not going overboard with your audience testing at the beginning. Like I said, a healthy amount is anywhere from 5 to 15 audiences to begin with, letting those run and then going back and analyzing your data. So I've shown this graph many times in the past, but this is the campaign structure that we're going to be following. So you got your campaign at the top, ad set level budget campaigns, not CBO campaigns for testing. This is my personal preference. I've tested both for this brand and this worked better. So this is what I'm going to be showing you. And then here you got your ad sets. Your ad sets are where you're going to pick your audience. So this is where the audience testing actually begins. And then in each ad set, you can have multiple ads. So that's where the ad testing begins. So let me show you the data that we've gathered so far for this brand. Now, as you can see, we've spent around $800 and generated about $732. So we are unprofitable, which is not great. I mean, I wish we were profitable from the very beginning, but I'm not tripping at all about this. I'm actually really hyped on the results of this so far, especially when I look at our social media channels and how interested people are in our brand. But as you can see, I have 3 different campaigns here, but these 2 right here are the ones that we're going to be looking at right now. So the first one is my first testing campaign. I used a CBO campaign at $50 a day for this one. And to be honest with you, it didn't really work that well. I thought it would work better, but it only gave us 1 sale. I know it says 3 sales for some reason, but that's not true. It only gave us 1. But that honestly wasn't my preferred strategy to start with. But I still did it because I've been talking to some friends about it, and they were saying that that was the move. But my intuition was telling me to do ad set level budgets. And if there's one thing I've learned this year, is to always trust your intuition. So I didn't give up. I just instead decided to test my own strategy again and not be persuaded by other people. And as you can see, it has been working significantly better. We're still not profitable, but we've gotten over 22 sales from just this campaign alone. And there are, of course, untracked sales that we can't account for due to the iOS 14 update. But let me show you what this campaign looks like. So as you can see, we've tested 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different audiences. I haven't tested any sort of lookalike audiences or many other audiences in general. I've really just stuck to these 8 audiences to begin with. Main reason being because we still don't have that branded stock that I've been waiting for. I'm gonna launch like 10 more audiences and really send it. But luckily, I've actually been able to identify a couple audiences here that are performing pretty well. These 2 right here are actually breaking even. So for these 2 audiences, we're actually getting data for free. We're not losing any money on it. We're not making any money on it, but they're finding customers for us for free, basically. And as you can see here, this is what I mean by broad audiences working better. So ironically, my best audience right now, the one that's giving me literally the best metrics, is one where I didn't even add a single interest. So this is a no audience ad set. And this one is the one that's performing the best. So pretty ironic. I think what I will do once we receive our stock is just duplicate this audience from $10 a day, which is the budgets that I decided to start with, to $50 a day and just see what it does. But as you can see, there are a lot of audiences here that we've turned off. So these audiences I've turned off based on just really bad profitability. Like this audience right here, I still have on, even though it is unprofitable, because it is still gathering us some good customers and a lot of data and followers for our Instagram page and Facebook page. Plus the cost per add to cart on this audience is actually really good. $2 per add to cart is pretty fire. So I'm just gonna leave it on for a couple more days. And if it continues to go down, then I will be forced to turn it off. But some of these, for example, were just too unprofitable for me to keep on. And some of these here also were very unprofitable. So when it comes to reading the data, it actually is pretty simple. Just do it based on unprofitability. If something is super unprofitable for a long period of time, then just cut it. It's not worth it to have it on unless it is getting decent amount of sales for you. Now, to know whether or not an audience is profitable, you'll need to calculate your BEP, which is your break even point. I will show you how to do that in the next slide, but you can also kill audiences based on the link clicks being too expensive. If you're on a really tight budget, then you should be a little more strict with your audiences and not letting them run excessively like I did, because you really need to make the most out of your budget. So I would say, as a general rule of thumb, if you're targeting a bunch of countries and broad audiences, but you're still getting above a $2 cost per link click after a full day of letting your ads run, then you can just kill that audience early. So for example here, a couple of these audiences, I didn't kill them early. I actually let them run for 2.5 days at $10 a day, but I still would consider it somewhat early. These audiences were just way too high of cost per link click compared to everything else. So I didn't find it worth it to let them run for an extra day. I just killed them and moved on. Now, as I was saying, you can definitely let unprofitable audiences run as long as they're getting some sales, right? But if they're getting 0 sales, it's really not worth it to let them run, because that just shows you that nobody in that audience is interested in your product. But if it is unprofitable and still getting you sales, depending on how tight on budget you are, it could be worth it to let it run, because you're still acquiring new customers and followers that are interested in your brand along the way. And eventually you can retarget those people that didn't buy but still engage with your brand and get really cheap customers from that pool of people. So if you're on a really tight budget, I definitely don't recommend that. It's better to be more strict. But keep in mind that other competing e-commerce brands do have big budgets that they're working with, and they're totally willing to perpetually be unprofitable in the front end as long as they can make money in the back end through email marketing or retargeting. So how you calculate your break-even point is pretty simple. So the two numbers that you need to know are your selling price, which you determined, so you should know that, and your cost of goods. So in this example, let's say our selling price is $100 and it costs us $40 to get our product. Our break-even point in this case would be 60, just 100 minus 40. And then from that, you can determine your break-even return on ad spend. And that's also very simple. You just do your cost of goods divided by your margin or your break-even point, and that should give you your break-even ROAS. So in this case, it's 1.66. So any ad set that is above a 1.66 ROAS is profitable. Our break-even ROAS is 1.4. So in this case, we have 2 profitable ad sets, but I still would consider them to be breaking even because they're not hugely profitable. But that's what I mean by break-even ROAS. Now, the next part of the strategy is ad testing. So the brands who win are the ones that are testing new content almost every single day. The easiest way to test more content is to simply take your best audiences that you found through audience testing, duplicating them, and then changing the ad creative to something totally new. So as you can see, some of these audiences that I tested, they have an interest that I've already used before, but I actually tested a totally different creative. In this case, I tested an Instagram post that we made that actually was going pretty viral. It had like over 100 likes. So I figured it would be worth it to test some of our winning audiences that we found so far with a brand new ad. Unfortunately, those didn't really pan out. It didn't really work, but I'm going to continue to test some new stuff. This is, in my opinion, the best way to test new ads. It's super simple and really effective once you actually have more content. Now, a great way to get an endless supply of content, and it's sort of a life hack when it comes to e-commerce brands, is to just simply send out free products to micro influencers, because they're totally going to be willing to make an ad for you as long as they're getting free products. Now, this is what I'm mostly excited about when it comes to this brand, but I want to wait until we get our brand branded stock to really go hard on this. Otherwise, I could see people being a little more hesitant. But if they get a package from our brand with a branded card and like a branded bag, they're gonna know right away that we sent them that, and they're gonna tag us on Instagram, tag us on Facebook, and we're really gonna start snowballing the brand. Now, the last step in this strategy is basically optimizing. So to start optimizing your results, simply start cutting out the stuff that isn't working and creating more of the stuff that is working. If you have some audiences that are totally killing it, for example, simply double down on them by duplicating them to a higher budget. So for example, if you have an audience of people who love dogs and it's getting a 3+ return on ad spend at $10 a day, duplicate it to $50 a day and see what happens. This is exactly what I'm going to be doing with some of those audiences that I showed you have over 6 sales. Now, if those audiences were getting like a 6 return on ad spend right now, I wouldn't hesitate to duplicate them to $200 a day or even $500 a day if we had our branded stock and budget. Unfortunately, they're not getting that great of return on ad spend, so I'm not going to be doing that yet. And of course, once you do duplicate some audiences to higher budget, don't turn off the initial audience unless it's unprofitable. If you turn things off that are working, it could jeopardize your momentum, and there's no reason to do that, right? If something is working and making you money, don't turn it off. Now, at this point, to optimize your results, you should start setting up retargeting audiences to market to people that have already visited your store or interacted with your brand on social media. This is super simple to do. It's literally the same as testing audiences, except you have to create the custom audience. But I'll show you how to do that. And as you can see, our overall results here from all campaigns, we are breaking even on a retargeting campaign. And one of our assets here in the retargeting campaign, which is retargeting to people who have visited our Instagram, is at a 2.1 ROAS. So that's actually really profitable for us, which is very exciting. So how you create these audiences is you go to business tools, you go to audiences, and then you simply click create audience, custom audience, and from here you can do your website, for example. So for this, we can do all people who have visited our website in the past 14 days, for example, and then you just create that audience. Or you could do custom audience and do Instagram account. So for this, you could retarget all the people that have visited your Instagram account in the last 14 days or any of these events here that you see. This is the simplest way to do it. There's of course many ways to segment things by different days and by a ton of different things, but I don't want to confuse you. I want to keep this as simple as possible. Now, the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to optimizing is growth. So the longer that your ads are running, the more data that you're gathering. And with this data, you can identify more and more test groups that are working and resonating with your brand, and then increasing the budget on those things. And that's how you start getting better and better results. You'll also grow your overall audience by running ads. So it is really smart to run ads. This is why I believe it is better to start a little bit slow and steady, because that way you'll have more opportunities to engage with your community that you're growing through running ads. And this is what's amazing about running ads, is that you will build a following on social media through the ads that you're running. And when you engage with your following on social media, you're having more touch points with those people, which will really increase the likelihood that you'll convert some of those people into customers. So lastly, I'm going to show you how you can create a campaign so that you're not confused and struggling on how to do this. So let's say I'm creating a brand new campaign from scratch. I would just go here to create. I would do conversions, continue. We'll name this campaign interest testing. You don't need to declare a category unless you're in some of these categories, I guess. We want to make sure that we're on the conversions objective here. So conversions, and right here's where you can set up campaign budget optimization. They do recommend that, but that's not the way I like to start interest testing, but you're more than welcome to do that if you want to. Now at the ad set level here, you would just pick your pixel. I'm not going to pick my pixel because I don't want to show you the name of my store here. And then your daily budget. So for here, we're just gonna do $10 a day. We're gonna start this at midnight, just so that we get a full 24 hours to spend. And then here, you're just gonna target all of the countries that you can ship to. But the most important ones really are just United States, United Kingdom, Australia, and Canada. But of course, if you only ship to France, for example, then just pick France or whatever countries that you can ship to. I would leave this stuff like age and genders just open and letting Facebook optimize for you. If your product is heavily swaying towards women or men, then you can definitely narrow it down to help Facebook out a little bit. You can have the detailed targeting expansion button on. A lot of people do this nowadays to get better results, but I still prefer not to do that at the beginning because I just really want to test things on my own. phone. So fortunately for you, like all this stuff isn't extremely critical anymore. The things that are most important is just your product being awesome and your ads being really good. So here is where we picked our detailed targeting. So here we'll just pick dogs. That has 130 million people potential reach. That's really broad, and it's going to give Facebook a lot of room to optimize. And then here we want to leave it on automatic placements. We just want Facebook to show our ad in the right places so that people convert at a cheap cost. Here's the last thing. This isn't super trivial either, but if your product is below, let's say $30, I would recommend that you switch this to 1-day click or view. So that gives Facebook a shorter time frame. It's basically going to be showing things to people that impulse buy more. But if your product is a little bit more expensive than that, then just switch it to 7-day click or 1-day view. This is still my favorite default attribution setting, just because that way you're just giving Facebook more freedom. And then after that is where you make your ad. Now I have many videos showing you how to make a video ad, so I will just link those right here somewhere. Otherwise this video is gonna be like an hour long, and that's a little too long for my liking. So thank y'all so much for watching. I know this got a little bit lengthy, and if you're still watching, I really appreciate you sticking around and your patience. Now of course, if you want to keep up with the progress of this store, make sure that you subscribe, turn on post notifications, and like this video. That's really gonna help me out, and that really encourages me to continue to make my videos better and better. I've been really excited with the growth of my YouTube channel, so I really appreciate all the support that you guys are giving these videos. And yeah, I'm super excited to continue to update you guys on this. I'm super excited for this brand. And with all that said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in my next video. Peace.